There are two kinds of wealth in this world, the kind that fills your hands and the kind that fills your heart. John Carter had mastered the first. He was the man who could afford the silence of the world, the owner of skyscrapers, empires, and influence. Yet, when the doors of his penthouse closed, what echoed back to him wasn't laughter or conversation, it was emptiness. Every night, he sat surrounded by things that glowed, but none of them warmed him. He had purchased comfort, but never connection. He had conquered success, but had forgotten how to feel alive. And as he walked through those aisles of luxury and abundance, he began to realize that there is no greater poverty than being rich and unloved. We often chase success with the urgency of a man drowning underwater, reaching for titles, trophies, and applause, as if they could save us from ourselves. But in that race, we leave behind the very things that make us human. We build walls of glass and marble to prove our worth, only to discover that those walls keep love out. John's story is not rare, it's a mirror. So many of us fill our calendars but empty our souls. We buy to feel important, we achieve to feel worthy, and we climb to feel seen. Yet when the lights fade and the noise disappears, the silence asks one question that no wealth can answer. Who are you when no one needs what you have? The truth is, money can build a house, but it can't build a home. It can buy medicine, but it can't buy healing. It can fund a celebration, but it can't create joy. The greatest irony of life is that the more we try to own, the less we actually belong. John Carter's wealth was his cage. Every diamond was another lock, every possession another chain. But one morning, in a supermarket, it filled with ordinary people living ordinary lives, he found something extraordinary, a smile that didn't need wealth to exist. Julie reminded him that happiness doesn't come wrapped in luxury. It comes from the messy, unpredictable human moments we try to avoid. What makes this story powerful is not that John found love in his old age, but that he found life again. He learned that being seen and being valued are not the same thing. He discovered that companionship is the only currency that never loses value. And he realized that time, not money, is the rarest form of wealth. For years, he had spent his fortune preserving his image, but Julie helped him see that it was his heart that needed restoration. Through her laughter, her honesty, and her chaos, she cracked open a life that had been sealed shut by routine and pride. So, let this be a reminder: your worth isn't measured by what you own, but by what you give. Your legacy won't be written in assets or estates, but in the hearts you touch and the love you leave behind. The wealth of an empty heart is a tragedy that no success can justify. You can lose money and earn it again, but when you lose the capacity to feel, to care, to connect, you lose everything that makes you alive. Don't wait until the silence of your success becomes louder than your joy. Fill your heart before you fill your hands, and you'll find that true riches were never in the vault. They were always in the moments money could never buy. Some deals are signed on paper with ink that fades, but the most powerful ones are written in courage, compassion, and the quiet willingness to change someone's life. When John Carter approached Julie that morning in the supermarket, he didn't realize he was about to make the most important deal of his lifetime. It wasn't about stocks or contracts or profits. It was about hope. A lonely millionaire found himself captivated by a young woman's spirit, her ability to turn ordinary moments into something alive. In her laughter, he saw something money could never replicate: sincerity. So, when he offered her a strange proposal to teach his grandson how to live again, it wasn't just a business arrangement. It was a desperate attempt to heal what generations of wealth had broken: the human heart. Julie didn't walk into that deal for fame or fortune. She walked in because something inside her recognized a purpose bigger than herself. Her life hadn't been easy. She had known struggle, uncertainty, and the kind of pain that teaches you to smile even when life tries to break you. But that very resilience made her different. She didn't just sell juice that day. She sold belief, the belief that joy still exists even in the most lifeless souls. When John made her an offer, she didn't understand its magnitude. Yet sometimes destiny doesn't arrive with clarity. It arrives disguised as an opportunity. That deal became the bridge between two worlds, the cold precision of success and the messy warmth of humanity. At first, it seemed like a simple task. Convince a man who had forgotten how to feel that life was more than work. But as Julie stood before Macon Carter, she realized the true challenge wasn't changing his mind. It was reaching his heart. Macon was brilliant but disconnected, driven but drained. He had inherited not only his grandfather's empire, but also his emptiness. He wore ambition like armor, protecting himself from vulnerability. Yet every sharp word he spoke, every cynical look he gave, was a cry for something deeper. Julie saw through it. She saw the boy who once wanted to dream before the world, taught him that emotions were weaknesses. And so, her mission became not about reforming a businessman, but reviving a human being buried beneath years of perfection. But here's the beauty of this deal: it wasn't one-sided. As Julie helped Macon rediscover life, she began to rediscover herself. She had entered his world thinking she was the teacher, but soon realized she was the student too. In his determination, she found inspiration. In his fear of failure, she recognized her own. Together, they began to break the unspoken walls of isolation that success and struggle alike can build. They learned that love isn't a distraction from purpose. It's the fuel that gives purpose meaning. And sometimes the person you were sent to heal becomes the person who heals you. That was the real transaction, not money, not work, but transformation. The deal that changed everything wasn't signed with ink. It was signed with trust. It taught John that wealth without wisdom is emptiness, Macon that achievement without emotion is failure, and Julie that compassion without boundaries can change destinies. It reminds us that every person we meet carries a lesson, and every connection holds the potential to rewrite the story we thought was finished. In a world obsessed with gain, the greatest profit is still found in giving. Because at the end of every great story, whether in business, love, or life, the most valuable contracts are the ones that make us more human. There comes a moment in every life when success stops being enough, when the goals you've chased begin to feel like cages, and the silence after every victory grows heavier than the applause. Macon Carter had reached that moment. He had climbed to the top of the world, surrounded by glass walls, luxury, and expectations. But what he couldn't escape was the emptiness echoing inside him. He had spent years mastering how to survive, but not how to live. His life was a schedule, not a story. He had traded mornings for meetings, sunsets for spreadsheets, and connection for control. It wasn't that he didn't want to live, he simply forgot how. And then, as fate would have it, a stranger walked in with messy hair, bright eyes, and a laugh that didn't ask for permission. Julie was not there to teach him business. She was there to teach him being. From the moment she entered his world, the rhythm of Macon's life began to shift. She challenged him, annoyed him, and confused him, but she also awakened him. In her presence, he realized how mechanical he had become. Julie didn't follow the script. She tore it apart. When he spoke in numbers, she replied in stories. When he chased perfection, she celebrated flaws. And somewhere between their clashing conversations and reluctant companionship, something began to change. Julie was not the kind of person you could ignore. She was life personified. She reminded him that laughter is not unproductive, that rest is not weakness, and that feeling deeply is not a flaw. Through her, Mackin began to see that the real poverty of his existence wasn't a lack of success, it was the absence of joy. Learning to live again is not easy, it's terrifying. It means facing the parts of yourself you buried under ambition. It means admitting that despite your accomplishments, you're still lost. Mackin had spent years building walls of intellect, but Julie broke them down with warmth. Every small act, a joke, a shared coffee, a walk outside the office, became a rebellion against the emptiness he once accepted as normal. He discovered that living wasn't about chasing the next milestone, but about feeling the moment you're in. The world hadn't changed, his perspective had. The same streets looked brighter, the same days felt longer, and even silence carried a new kind of peace. Julie didn't give him a new life, she gave him permission to feel the one he already had. But the beauty of life's rediscovery is that it transforms both people involved. As Mackin began to open his heart, Julie found herself healing too. For years, she had used humor to hide her pain, the struggle of fighting through a world that rarely noticed her. But in teaching Mackin how to live, she remembered her own lessons. That love is not a weakness, that sincerity is strength, and that vulnerability is not something to fear, but something to share. Together, they learned that living isn't about escaping hardship. It's about embracing it with courage. Love didn't arrive in perfection. It arrived through discomfort, honesty, and growth. And that's what made it real. Learning to live again means remembering what truly matters, not the wealth in your account, but the warmth in your days. It's about replacing the language of what's next with what's now. It's about realizing that happiness doesn't need a grand stage. Sometimes it's found in the quiet company of someone who understands your silence. Mackin Carter's story reminds us that life is not something you master. It's something you feel, lose, and rediscover over and over again. The greatest success is not building an empire. It's building a heart that can still love, laugh, and hope after being hardened by the world. Because in the end, the art of living isn't about starting over. It's about remembering how to begin again.